Hey everybody, it's Dave from Royce, and today I'm going to show you how to make a main menu for your game. I define a main menu as something that can take you to the game, and can take you to other menus such as an options menu, but is not going to allow you to change settings like an options menu. So let's get started. First, we need to create a user interface, and I'm going to rename this user interface to main menu. Now we're going to have to set the anchor points. So in the inspector tab, in our inspector, we can click layout, and anchor preset, and set it to the center of the screen. This is going to keep everything we have in the main menu to the center of the screen. Now we're going to add a couple children. So add child, and we're going to add a panel container node. And we're also going to put our layout to the center of the screen. Now let's add another child to this node. Let's add a VBox container, which will keep everything in a vertical line. And let's add some functionality. So let's add a label to tell us what menu we're on. And let's add a button. That's all we're going to need for now. Oh, wait, the button needs to be a child of the VBox container, and at the bottom. There we go. Now, let's call our label main menu. And I'm going to change the font size, which will increase the size of our VBox container. So if you can go into theme overrides, font sizes, set this, and then just increase it to something that looks good. About there, I'll be fine. Now let's go into our button, and I'm going to call this button Start Game. And we're going to do the same thing, so we're going to change the font size. So font sizes, and increase that. That looks good. Now let's rename our button to Start Game, button, and let's name our panel container to Menu Tab. You're going to see why in a second. So now we're ready to attach our script and add some functionality. So in our main menu, right-click and attach script. And I'm going to call this Main Menu Manager. And we're going to have one global variable. So we're going to create a list of integers, and we're going to call this go back list. And we're just going to equals new for now. Now, our main menu manager is going to have three sets of functionality. We want to be able to go to other menus. We want to be able to have other menus go back to us. And we want to be able to load a scene. So we're going to create three functions to do all those three things. So the first function we're going to create is called public void swap menu. And we're going to take in two parameters. We're going to take in a menu index, int menu index. And we're going to take in an int return index. The return index will be used to return to the previous menu. So let's add some functionality. So if getChild menu index is a menu tab, which is a type of script we haven't created yet. And we're going to pass in our menu tab into another variable called menu tab. Now, all we need to do is set menu tab dot visible equals true. That's all we're going to need for this if statement. We're going to create another one. So if our return index is less than 0, we just need to return and continue no further in the script. And now we can add our return index to our go back list. Go back list.add return index. That's all we're going to need for the swap menu function. We're going to now create another function to swap to the previous menu. Public void swap menu to previous. And we're going to take in no parameters for this one. First, we're going to need to check if our go back list is empty. So if nothing is in the go back list, just return. We don't need to do anything in this. If this is called with nothing in our go back list. Now we can call our swap menu function. So swap menu, we're going to pass in two things. So we're going to pass in our go back list, the final thing in our go back list. So go back list, and then in brackets go back list dot count -1. Whoops, -1. This will give us our last item in go back list. And I'm going to set this to -1 for our return index. The reason is because if we go back, we don't want to be updating our return. And so this will just make sure that if it's below 0, we will not be updating the return index or the go back list. Now we need to remove the last item from our go back list. So we can just do that by go back list dot remove at, and we can just do go back list dot count -1. Again, remove the last item in our go back list. That's all we're going to need to swap our menu to the previous menu. We're going to need one more function in this script. We're going to need one more function to load in our game. So public void on swap scene, and we're going to take in one parameter of a packed scene, and I'm just going to call it load scene. Now we need to spawn our scene. So we can do getTree dot root dot add child, and then we can just do load scene dot instantiate. And now we don't need the main menu anymore, so we can just queue free. That's all we're going to need to do for our main menu manager script. Save that and go back into Godot. And in our menu tab, create another script. And I'm just going to call this menutab.cs. Our menu tab is going to have one global variable, private main menu manager. And we're just going to call this main menu because we'll be calling main menu manager functions from our menu tab. Now we need to get reference to it. So public override void ready. And now we can just check if it's our parent, if get parent is main menu manager, main menu equals get parent as main menu manager. Now our main menu set up. So now we're going to have to create 3 functions very similar to the functions we made in our main menu manager. So the first one is going to be public void on menu swap button pressed. You'll see why we call that in a second. And we're going to take in an int swap index. All this function is going to have to do is call our main menu dot swap menu and pass in our swap index and our get index. Get index is essentially where you are in relation to the other children in the scene, in the specific area you are. So that's why we're able to just pass in our get index. And now we're going to set our visibility. So visible equals false. We don't need this menu anymore if we loaded another menu. Now we need to create another function, public void on menu return button pressed. And this one's going to take in no parameters. And we're just going to call main menu dot swap menu to previous with no parameters. And we're going to set our visibility to false again. Not to true, to false. Now we're going to have to create one more function. Public void load scene request. And we're going to take in one parameter of a packed scene. And I'm just going to call it load scene. And now we just need to call main menu again. Main menu dot on swap scene and pass in our load scene. Perfect. This is most of the code we're going to have to do. So now we just need to create buttons to pass things into this script. So if we go back into Godot and go to our start game button, we can attach another script. And I'm just going to call this script menu swapper button. So the script is going to have to get reference to the menu we want to swap to. So we can just do export node switch to menu. And now we can subscribe to the press signal. So this function will act when it's pressed. So public override void underscore ready. And we're just going to subscribe to pressed plus equals. And let's call this function on menu swapper button pressed. Give it no parameters. So if we hit Control P here, we can generate the method for on menu swapper button pressed. Now, what we have to do here is just get the menu tab. So if get parent dot get parent, because it's 2 parents above us, is a menu tab, pass it into a menu tab variable. And now we can just do menu tab dot on menu swap button pressed. We can pass in our switch to menu dot get index. That's all we're going to need. Now we can test this. So if we go back into Godot and we create another menu tab, so let's just duplicate this. And I'm going to change this to second menu. I'm going to hide this for now. Second menu, I'm going to change the button to return, a return button. And so now we can go into our start game button. Sorry about the cut, I had to relaunch Godot. So now we can set our menu tab 2 to the switch menu button. And now we can just disconnect this script from this button, because it's going to be our return button, and I'm going to rename it as such, return button. And now we can just set it to call the return in menu tab 2. So node pressed. Go to menu tab 2, and now we can pick the function on menu return button pressed and click connect. This will return us to our previous scene, and this will load our new scene. So now if we start on the first menu, and run our game, you can see we can now go to the next menu and return. Now let's expand our functionality a bit. I'm going to add a couple more buttons here. And I'm going to actually call this one options button. And the last one is quit game button. And we're going to change the text to be as such. So quit game, options, And neither of these are going to need the script we have attached. So we can just attach the script, save the scene, and if we run it again, we can hit options and it'll take us to the second menu, but these buttons will not do anything. So options, return, options, return. Perfect. Now let's add some functionality to our start game button to load another scene. First, let's create a main scene. I'm just going to call this make it 2D, and I'm just going to call it main for now. I'm going to save it as our main, and I'm going to create another scene, and we're going to call this game. And now I'm going to add a sprite 2D, and we're just going to put in the default icon so we know we loaded the scene. Save this, and we're going to call it game as well. So now, in our start game button, we can attach another script. And I'm going to call this script load scene button. And it's going to act very similar to our menu swapper button. So we're going to have to export and get reference to a scene we want to switch to. Export packed scene, scene to switch to. We're going to have to get access to when our button is pressed, so public override void _ ready. And then just subscribe to the pressed, like we did before. And I'm going to call this on switch scene button pressed. And now let's generate our method like before. We don't need to throw. And now, very similar to before, if getParent.getParent is a menu tab, dot load scene request, and pass in the scene we want to switch to. Scene switch to switch to. And I forgot the parameters here. That's all the coding we're going to have to do. So let's go back into our scene. Click our start button, compile, and now we can just drag in our game scene here and save. And now we can drag in our main menu scene. And normally this would be in the center because we set our anchors before, but Godot seems to be bugging out, so I'm just going to take a cheat for now and put it in the center manually. Close enough. Save our scene, and let's test it. So our option button and return still work. And now we can hit start game and it'll load our scene. So the only thing we have to add now is our quick game button to do something. So we don't really have to do anything. So we can just go into our main menu and we can create another function, private void on quick game button pressed, take in no parameters, and we can just get tree dot quit. That's all we have to do. So now let's go and attach our quick game button to that function. Pick it. I have to build first. On quick game pressed, click OK, connect. So let's run our game again. So everything still works. Start game. That all works. But now we can just quit the game. That's all for this video. If you got anything from this, I would appreciate a like. Have a good one.